Life can really throw you around sometimes, can't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Waves of challenges hit, moments leave you feeling completely overwhelmed, and maybe you're dragging along burdens from the past.
Yeah, things you just wish you could shake off.
Exactly. Just wish you could finally get rid of them. What if there's a way, though? A way to find a deep, lasting strength and peace. Not by somehow magically making the storms disappear, but finding a completely different way to navigate right through them.
That idea of navigating through challenges, well, that's exactly the heart of what we're diving into today.
Okay.
We've pulled together, a fascinating collection of sources, insights from studies, articles, video commentaries.
A real mix.
Yeah, all centered around themes of Christian faith and one particularly beloved ancient letter.
And our mission for this deep dive is to really unpack what these sources reveal about finding that kind of deep inner peace.
That's it. And also about processing and moving beyond past burdens, facing down current difficulties.
And especially, getting to the true, powerful meaning of that very famous verse from the letter to the Philippians.
Yes, looking at it in its original context, that's key.
Good.
And this exploration is tailored specifically for you, our listener. We're here to help you cut through the noise, uncover the core insights.
Find something practical.
Exactly. Hopefully find some really practical takeaways that resonate with your own journey.
Okay, let's jump right in then. Starting with this concept of inner restoration.
Right.
The sources really highlight how our past experiences shape us deeply, sometimes leaving behind not just memories, but this heavy sense of shame or lingering pain.
It's true, and they make this observation that a significant amount of our mental and emotional energy can actually be spent just trying to repress those painful things.
Just pushing them down.
Exactly. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater, isn't it? It takes constant effort, and the moment you let go, pop, right back up.
Yeah.
What's fascinating is how the sources contrast that draining effort with the concept of spiritual restoration.
Okay, so how is it different?
Well, it's presented less as just managing symptoms and more as a fundamental transformation, something possible through faith. They use really powerful language here, talking about becoming a new creation.
Wow.
Leaving those past practices and that heavy sense of shame behind to genuinely move forward.
And this inner peace, it's not just passive, is it? The sources seem to point out it's a dynamic interaction.
That's a great way to put it. A blend of something divine happening and our own participation. There's this beautiful idea, mentioned in one text, He will keep you in perfect peace. That's the divine promise.
Okay.
But it's specifically for the person whose mind is stayed on you. That's our part.
Ah, so there's effort involved.
What a deliberate choice, yeah. To keep our thoughts and hearts focused on what is constructive, what is true, and consciously taking our worries, big or small, to a higher power through prayer.
And this process, it sounds like it requires us to actually detach from those negative past experiences to allow real healing.
Absolutely. It means facing and confessing past wrongs, even the seemingly small ones, rather than hiding or denying them.
No more sweeping under the rug.
Right. One source uses this impactful phrase, treat the cause and not the symptom.
Okay.
If shame or fear is the symptom, maybe the cause is something from the past that needs to be brought into the light.
That makes sense. There's that great analogy, too, isn't there? Attributed to Martin Luther.
About the birds. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't stop birds from flying over your head, right? They're just going to fly. But you can stop them from building a nest in your hair.
It's a perfect picture, isn't it? For temptation or negative thoughts. They might fly into your mind. You can't always prevent that.
Right.
But you absolutely can prevent them from settling in, making themselves at home, and dominating your thinking.
And this touches on a crucial point the sources raise. This idea of an adversary.
Yeah, it's presented not just as an abstract concept, but as real opposition. Someone who, keeps a record of your weaknesses, your failures, your fears.
And uses them against you.
Specifically to try and keep you feeling trapped or defeated. It's vital, the sources emphasize, not to listen to those deceptive voices, those whispers that leverage your past.
So how do you fight that?
Well, overcoming this influence is deeply connected to forgiveness. Forgiving others is tied to receiving forgiveness.
Okay.
And that act of receiving forgiveness is presented as absolutely essential for complete inner healing.
So putting it all together in this section, the sources connect this whole process, honest confrontation, seeking divine restoration, choosing where to focus your mind.
All of it.
to experiencing a life marked by abundance, peace, and joy, but a peace that isn't dependent on perfect circumstances.
Exactly. It's found right in the midst of difficulties.
Okay.
Which leads us beautifully into our next focus.
Perfect transition.
Moving from that deeply personal inner journey, we're shifting attention to a specific ancient text that speaks volumes about finding strength and joy precisely amidst trials. The letter to the Philippians.
Ah, yes, often called the letter of joy.
And rightly so. But it's truly remarkable when you consider the author and his circumstances.
Right, this is Paul, and he wrote it while he was imprisoned in Rome, around 60 to 62 AD.
That's the time frame, yeah. And he wasn't just sitting in a cell, he was under house arrest.
Which meant?
He was constantly 24 hours a day chained to a Roman guard.
Wow. Imagine that.
Yet, despite being literally bound, he produced this incredible letter overflowing with encouragement, thankfulness, and that theme of joy. It's amazing.
It really is. And understanding the context of Philippi itself helps too, right?
Definitely. It was a city in Macedonia, originally founded way back by Philip II, Alexander the Great's father.
Okay, ancient history.
By Paul's time, it was a significant Roman colony, granted special status, almost like a little piece of Rome on Greek soil.
And the sources draw from Acts, the book of Acts, to tell how the church there started.
That's right. Paul, traveling with companions like Silas, Timothy, Lucas, he had a vision directing him to Macedonia.
And Philippi was the first stop.
Well, where they began their work, making it the very first church planted in what we now consider Europe.
That's significant. And wasn't Lydia involved there? The businesswoman.
Yes, Lydia, a successful businesswoman dealing in expensive purple cloth. She and her whole household were among the first fruits of their ministry there, a key figure.
So Paul clearly felt a deep connection to these people.
Oh, absolutely. A genuine affection and gratitude. His letter is full of warmth and thankfulness.
Even though he was in prison.
Even though he was in prison, and even though there were challenges within the Philippian church itself. False teachers, internal disagreements.
Right, it wasn't all smooth sailing for them either.
Not at all, but his gratitude shines through.
The letter is addressed to the saints in Philippi, along with bishops and deacons. What do the sources say about saints?
They clarify that saints here refers to believers, those set apart by God's calling. It doesn't suggest they were already perfect people.
Okay, just set apart.
Exactly. But what's noteworthy is that the leaders, the bishops and deacons, are mentioned among the saints. Not above them.
Precisely. The sources suggest this highlights a model where leaders serve the people, standing alongside them rather than being elevated.
Interesting detail.
And the opening blessing really sets the stage.
Yeah.
Grace and peace.
Two huge concepts.
Foundational. Grace is explained as God's unmerited favor, the source of redemption. Peace is presented as its effect, reconciliation with God, that deep inner calm.
And both come from God and Jesus Christ.
Yes, that's explicitly stated. It really frames the whole letter. Okay, I need your help sharing this conversation. Please like the video, subscribe for more content, and maybe leave a positive word in the comments. It really helps.
Absolutely. So let's zero in now on one of the most, widely recognized verses from this letter. Maybe one of the most quoted verses anywhere. Philippians 4:13.
I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. You hear it everywhere.
You really do. Applied to, well, all sorts of situations. Sports, business goals, everything. And because it's quoted so often kind of pulled out of its original setting, the sources raise a really crucial question.
Which is?
When people say this verse, do they truly understand what Paul meant by it, given the context he wrote it in?
Right. Context is everything, isn't it?
Absolutely. To get at that true meaning, we have to look at the verses immediately before verse 13. Philippians 4:10-12.
Okay, what's happening there?
This is where Paul says something really significant. He states, and this is key, I have learned to be content in whatever situation I am.
Learned it, not just knew it.
Learned it. He then goes on to list the range of situations he's learned to handle.
Like what?
He talks about knowing how to be humbled and knowing how to be honored. He knows how to have plenty, how to be hungry, abundance, scarcity.
The full spectrum.
The full spectrum. And the sources highlight he learned this not theoretically, but through experience. They use language suggesting he learned a deep secret or was initiated into this way of living.
Wow. So he really went through it.
He really did. And here's where that crucial context slams into verse 13. The sources make a powerful argument.
Okay.
When Paul says all things in verse 13, right after describing all that,
Yeah.
he isn't giving a blank check promise that you can achieve anything you want. Win the lottery, become CEO, you know?
Conquer the world.
Right. It's not about just achieving any goal simply because you want to.
So what does all things refer to then?
Exactly. The all things here refer specifically to the varied and often challenging circumstances Paul just described in verses 10-12.
So enduring those things.
Yes. The strength Paul speaks of is the strength to endure and live contentedly through these extremes, through being humbled or honored, through having plenty or being in need.
Okay, that shifts the focus quite a bit.
It really does. The capacity to navigate these specific life situations comes through Christ, who strengthens me.
And that word strengthen.
The Greek is endunamou. It's connected to dunamis, which means power. The sources link this directly to the dynamic power of the Spirit working within the believer. Real power, but for endurance.
Okay. Is there an example that helps illustrate this?
One really vivid example used in the sources is the story of Job from the Old Testament.
Job. He knew suffering.
He certainly did. Think about him. Described as blameless, upright, fearing God, turning away from evil, incredibly wealthy, highly respected.
In Paul's terms, Job knew how to be honored.
Exactly. Then the story unfolds. Immense suffering, loss on every level, wealth, children, health, reputation. Gone.
He truly knew how to be humbled, and then some.
Absolutely. But despite losing everything, enduring unimaginable pain, what happened? Job's core identity, his faith, his reverence for God, it remained firm.
He didn't curse God and die, like his wife suggested.
No, he demonstrated strength in these extreme, terrible circumstances, not by changing them, not by escaping them, but by enduring through them with this resilient spirit grounded in his relationship with God.
Wow, that really puts Philippians 4.13 in perspective.
It does, doesn't it? So, the really impactful takeaway from these sources is clear. Philippians 4.13 isn't primarily about achieving external goals.
It's not a self-help mantra.
Not in that sense. It's a profound promise that you will have the strength, the inner capacity from Christ to face and endure any circumstance life throws at you.
Easy or difficult?
Easy or incredibly difficult. And maintain contentment, peace, faith in Him right in the middle of it.
Strengthen the situation.
Not necessarily a guarantee of a change of the situation itself. That's the core.
Okay, so that's a powerful reframing. How do we take this understanding, this recentered view of Philippians 4.13, and actually put it into practice? Make it real in our lives?
Well, one powerful way the sources suggest is through meditation and reflection.
Okay, like what specifically?
Like really reflecting on our dependence on divine strength, on His sovereignty over our circumstances, even the hard ones, and honestly identifying specific areas in our own life right now.
Where things are tough.
Exactly. Where we need Christ's strength simply to endure, to stand firm, to find that contentment within the situation we're in, not just wishing it was different.
That makes sense. And it also shapes our identity, doesn't it?
Profoundly. It reminds us that relying solely on our own limited strength, well, it isn't enough. But in Christ, we are strengthened.
Right.
This reinforces the truth that you are loved, you are valued, and you are empowered by a higher power. Not necessarily to conquer every external obstacle in the way you might imagine.
But to face things.
To face and walk through challenges with resilience, trusting God's strength in all these varied circumstances Paul talks about, that becomes a foundational part of who we are becoming.
And it's vital for discipleship too, right? For growth.
Absolutely. Constantly remembering this truth about where our real strength comes from, well, it keeps His presence and power at the forefront. Throughout life's journey, mountaintops and valleys.
Yeah.
This understanding is also incredibly powerful in community settings.
Like small groups.
Yeah.
Or family.
Exactly. Sharing openly about how Christ's strength has helped you or others get through difficult times, that can be deeply encouraging.
Mutual support.
Yes. Activities like discussing how this verse applies to different life scenarios, or even, creating a visual reminder together.
Yeah.
Maybe just a simple list of times Christ has strengthened you to endure. It makes it tangible.
And teaching this early to children, that sounds really important for their future.
So important for building resilience. The sources suggest using simple stories, analogies they can grasp.
Like the bird in the wind idea?
Something like that. Explaining that we can face things not just because of our own effort, but because of a strength given to us. Teaching kids this foundational truth helps shape them into people who understand.
That they don't have to rely only on themselves.
Right. They can draw on strength beyond their own when life gets tough.
And applying it to marriage and parenting.
It takes on this beautiful shared dimension. In marriage, understanding Philippians 4.13 can become almost a quiet declaration of commitment.
How so?
A reminder that you can face the inevitable challenges of life together, drawing on the strength Christ provides to both partners.
Facing things as a team.
Exactly. And for parents, it offers confidence and resilience, not just in raising kids, which is hard work,
Tell me about it.
but in equipping them with this vital truth of faith for the adversities they will face. It's consistently about finding strength to face the difficulties, not necessarily escaping them.
Facing, not escaping. That seems to be the theme.
It really is.
So as we bring this deep dive to a close, the core insight from the sources is really clear, isn't it?
I think so.
Finding true strength and peace isn't about being able to control every circumstance. It's not about achieving anything you want through sheer force of will.
No. It's about understanding and relying on that specific power Christ provides.
The power to endure.
To persevere.
And crucially, to find contentment in whatever situation you find yourself. Humbled or honored, hungry or full.
Think about this as you go about your day. How does acknowledging your dependence on divine strength to navigate all the ups and downs of life, the genuine all things Paul refers to?
Real stuff.
Yeah, the real stuff of Philippians 4.13. How does that connect with that process of inner restoration we talked about earlier? With finding a deep peace that isn't dependent on your external conditions changing?
That's a deep question.
What would it look like for you personally to live with that kind of resilient, Christ-centered peace today? Something to reflect on.